AARP YouTube channel. So make sure you click that button, click OK. Now, if you're not familiar, AARP is the nation's largest nonprofit, nonpartisan organization dedicated to empowering Americans 50 and over to choose how they live as they age and to age with confidence. Now, with a nationwide presence, AARP strengthens communities and advocate for what matters most to more than 1 million American 50 plus. Wow. And their families, including health, financial security, and personal fulfillment. Now, who's in the audience, Sarita? Who do you see in the chat? If you haven't already put your name in there, put it on in there now. You got a chance.
Goodness, Joyce, we've got people from all over the country, from the East Coast, West Coast, North, South, you name it. We've got a lot of people. Got people from Boston, New Mexico, Texas, Tennessee, Florida. You know, I could just go on and on. We've got so many people in the audience. It's great to see them all. Welcome, everyone.
Yeah, and I see what you're saying, Sarita. I see all of these smiling faces and they can't wait to get started. So we appreciate you joining us today to talk about traveling on a budget. Now, to get us warmed up, we have a poll question and ask you to quickly submit your answers. And don't worry, this poll question is unanimous, so nobody's going to know what it is. So now, this is poll question. Which part of your trip often has the most flexible cancellation policies? Again, which part of your trip often has the most flexible cancellation policies? I know you guys have been traveling or traveling with somebody else. What do you think? Well, they're coming in now. I see those answers. Yeah, hotel is really lightening up there. Flight a little bit, cruises, all the above. So far, it looks like hotel is winning. Wow. I'll give you a few more seconds. Oh, yeah, definitely hotel. Hotel is the most flexible that this group thinks. Flights coming in, not even a close second, but it's there. Cruises, almost nothing, and all of the above. Wow, so thank you so very much for putting those answers in there. Now let's get ready for our meeting. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we hear you, Joyce.
Okay. Hold on 1 second. So thanks for answering the poll questions, and you will learn more about our answers from our great speaker for today. Now, of course, it took everything. So let me go back here. All right. Hold on. Just give me 1 more second. Sorry for the delay, everybody. My screen took over everything. Give me 1 more second, please. I'm so sorry.
We appreciate you joining us today to talk about traveling on a budget. And before we introduce our guest speaker, we did want to share our disclaimer. This session is intended to be informational and educational and does not constitute financial or legal advice. Please consult your financial advisor or lawyer for advice regarding your personal situation. AARP is not responsible for the consequences of any decisions or actions taken in reliance upon or as a result of the information provided during this event. It is my pleasure. Oh,
Go ahead.
Ready?
Mhm.
Oh, you ready?
Yes. So we
Okay.
got the poll questions. Okay. So please, now I'd like to introduce our guest speaker, J.R. Fujita from our AA California Sacramento office. Now, J.R. began his career at AARP in 2017 and serves as a senior state and community engagement specialist in Sacramento. He manages the California District Liaison Volunteer Program, serves as a state lead for the California Veterans and Military Families Initiative, and is involved with the California Employers Pledge Program, works on community outreach and engagement efforts with Hispanic and Latino population, and manages a Movies for Grown-Ups program in Greater Sacramento. Now, outside of work, JR currently volunteers with the Sacramento Medical Corps Reserve and Making Strides Against Breast Cancer Walk of Sacramento. He is also a volunteer chaplain for the Rock and Roll Marathon Series in Las Vegas. Now, here's some facts about JR and his traveling. Can you believe JR can't stand eating pickles, mustard, peppers, tomatoes, mushrooms, eggplant, bean sprouts, and anything that is spicy? Now, JR has stayed loyal to one airline and has flown over 600,000 lifetime miles, well on its way to a 1,000,000-mile lifetime status. He has also stayed loyal to one hotel chain, staying over 500 nights, and is also closing in on having a lifetime preferred status. Wow. As a reminder, please put any questions for JR in the chat during the program, and he will answer them during the Q&A portion of our program. Let's welcome JR to our Zoom platform.
Good morning, and thank you, everyone. So glad to be here today to join you for our program. Today, during our program, I'm going to be sharing a lot of information, and so I encourage you to have a notepad handy or have your cell phone ready to take some photos. And this information comes from a lot of research. You can also refer to aarp.org/travel. And then to put together this presentation, I did work with a retired travel agent as well. As it was mentioned earlier today, we do have a disclaimer. We know each person's situation is different, and this is general information, and so we hope that you will keep all of that in mind for today's presentation. And again, welcome. As folks mentioned, I'm J.R. Fujita, and I will be your presenter for today's program. So for our agenda today, we will give you kind of some ideas about what it looks like for air travel, both domestic and internationally. We'll talk about cruising, housing options. We'll talk about ground transportation, staycations, and we'll talk about some loyalty clubs, tips, and tricks for today. And as others have mentioned, feel free to utilize the chat for some questions. We'll take some questions during our program and then again at the end of our workshop today. So for most of us are probably going to travel by domestic, and a lot of times that involves air travel. And while most of us are going to do that, there's some general tips to save money. The first thing is you want to plan about 6 weeks to 5 months prior to your travel. And of course, this is all going to depend on the location and the time of year when you're going to travel. Obviously, summertime and major holidays, it's going to be more expensive. And one of the big things to also kind of keep in mind is no matter what, the key is going to plan ahead as much as you can. That'll give you the best chance to save money when you're traveling. There's also a variety of different programs that you can use to find out about travel alerts. It might be, signing up for newsletters, following travel companies on social media, or doing just a general search on your online web browser. Generally, for domestic travel, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays are usually the most economical for domestic air travel. And the reason why is most leisurely and business travelers will travel on Sundays, Mondays, Thursdays, and Fridays. And it's also important to kind of keep in mind that sometimes one-way fares may be more affordable than booking a round-trip ticket. It's also important to keep in mind that many ultra low-cost carriers may have a lot of fees, and that can include a fee for carry-on bags, seat assignments, checked bags, food and beverage, including soft drinks. You may have a fee to print a boarding pass and more. And so it's important to keep that in mind when you're looking at booking your travel. Now, when we're traveling internationally, it's going to require a little bit more planning. And so the best time to book it is going to be 3 months to 10 months in advance. And just like domestic air travel, again, it all depends on the location and the time of year. You can usually count on better weather equals more expensive tickets. When you're traveling, you also want to think about local and destination international holidays. And so if there's a major holiday at your destination, it's probably going to be a little more expensive. When traveling internationally, it's a good idea to kind of start looking at airfare about a year in advance to kind of get an idea of what prices are going to look like. For domestic and international travel, Christmas is going to usually be the most expensive holiday to travel anywhere. And before you book international travel, it's important to also know what documents are going to be required before you book your trip. Because in some places, you may have to get a visa. Some countries may require certain proof of vaccination, for example. And so it all varies. And again, planning ahead is going to be the best way to plan to save money. When we're traveling, there's all different types of classes, different types of fares when you're shopping online, and it can be very difficult to understand. And so this is some general guidance about booking airfare. First and business class tickets are most expensive usually. Sometimes those tickets will include checked bags, carry-on bags, personal items, food and beverage, amenity kits. Sometimes they'll also include access to airline lounges. Now, these days, we also hear about premium economy. These are usually seats that are in front of economy cabin that have a little more space. It usually includes priority boarding, expedited security at the airport. It may include food and beverage, and sometimes it includes one checked bag. Most of us, when we travel, we're probably going to travel in economy. Some airlines may offer one free bag, especially for international travel, one carry-on, one personal item. It usually includes a non-alcoholic beverage, and sometimes it'll include a small snack such as pretzels. We also now have the option of basic economy on some airlines. And that's usually the cheapest, but a lot of times it has a lot of restrictions. Most of the time, it doesn't include a seat assignment. You may have to only bring a personal item that fits in the seat in front of you. If you're traveling with other people and you book basic economy, most likely you will not be seated together and you'll be scattered around the plane. And oftentimes it'll be in a center seat and most likely towards the back of the plane. A lot of these basic economy tickets are also usually non-refundable and non-changeable. And so it's important to keep that in mind. And again, the one personal item that I refer to are items that fit underneath the seat in front of you. And so it's usually a purse or a backpack or a briefcase. We're not talking about roller bags or large duffel bags. So then we move to cruising. And so some of us like to travel by water instead of by air. And cruising is a great way, an affordable way to see the world. There's a whole bunch of different ports around the world that's easy to travel to. Some of them you can travel by car or train. And there's a lot of options when you cruise. The more affordable ones are going to be if you book a lower deck or an interior cabin where you're not going to have a view. If you want a view or be on an upper deck, or some cruise lines have a little balcony, those are oftentimes going to be much more expensive. Most cruises will include your meals, and so you won't have to pay for those. And I know a lot of people like to cruise and they love the option to have all you can eat. Cruises often will also offer optional excursions. And what that means is if you want to do a tour when you're at a port, you can pay for those extras, but you don't have to. A lot of cruise lines have a cruise or an activity director, and they often have that on board that may include fitness classes, they may have entertainment, social activities, and other free things that you can do included in your cruise package. With cruising, there's also often last-minute deals for unsold inventory. So if you're flexible in your schedule and you can just pick up and go, that may be a great option for you, because cruise lines, they want to fill up as much as they can. It's not too often these days that you'll find a lot of unsold inventory or last-minute deals for airfare, because most of the time we know planes are often full. So when you're staying at your destination, you have a variety of different options of where you're going to stay. For hotels, we recommend you check travel sites as well as individual hotel sites. Check out the reviews, look at the photos, and it gives you an opportunity to compare prices. One of the things to keep in mind is if you book a third-party site, sometimes those have a little more restrictions. And so it might be harder if you have a travel disruption. And so that's something to consider when you're booking your travel. You might be able to save some money, but there may be more restrictions. Or you may have to deal with that third-party vendor instead of dealing with the company that you're actually dealing with and going to be staying at. For booking your room, it's important to choose the standard option if you don't have a lot of requirements. And those standard options most of the time are going to be no view. It might be on a lower floor. Some hotels even have rooms underground. But if that's important to you, then you'll want to check it out and compare the prices to see if it's worth staying on a high floor or an ocean view room. Most of the time, rooms with breakfast and or parking aren't always the most economical. And so it's important to do your research to find out what does that cost and is it going to be worth it to do a bundle. An example might be you stay at a hotel, it's $30 a night extra per person. And if you just want something like a bagel with cream cheese, you're not going to get that $30 worth. And so it might be better to just book the regular room without that included. Hotels are always often cheaper if it's off season and away from popular areas. And popular areas include iconic sites. So if you're staying near the Eiffel Tower or Disneyland or Times Square, those rooms are going to be a lot more expensive than if you stay a little further away. A great example that I can also give is if you go to Las Vegas and you stay on the strip or near the strip, those rooms are going to cost more than if you stay a few blocks away. Oftentimes, hotels in these popular areas and prime locations, most of the time, they're also going to have a lot more fees, such as resort fees. They may have higher tourism fees. And so those are things to just look as well. And again, if you're going to stay in high tourist areas, do your research and see how far are you willing to travel. In some cases, staying further away and doing a ride share might still be cheaper than staying right in the action. You also have to consider your travel preferences. And so if you don't like a lot of noise, you'll want to stay again further away from the action. But if those are things that you thrive on, then you have to consider that as well. When we travel, we don't have to always stay in a hotel, and now we have options for homes for rent or vacation rentals. It may be a more economical way to travel, and it's important to check those descriptions ahead of time before you book. If you have questions, contact the host before booking. A lot of these rentals may include a full kitchen, may have laundry facilities, may have free parking and free Wi-Fi. And so those are things to consider doing. Most of these rentals are also very economical, especially if you have a large family or traveling with a large group of people. And a good way to kind of figure that out is get the total cost before you book it, divide it by the number of people in your party, to figure out if that's much more economical. I know I travel with some friends from time to time, and we'll do these types of rentals because it makes much more sense. And the other thing is it also provides a lot more space as well. So when we travel by car, it's important to consider domestic car rentals. If you're going to book a car rental at an airport location, most of the time it's going to be the most expensive. They'll have more taxes and fees. Off-site rentals are usually more affordable. And what we mean by off-site rental locations, it's going to be more of a neighborhood car rental. Most of those rental locations that are off-site are also going to have limited hours. And so if you're flying to your destination and then renting a car, you'll have to factor in all of those. Economy cars are usually going to be the least expensive. It's important to only rent the size that you need when you consider your luggage, the number of passengers, and where you're going to be going on your trip. Please keep in mind some super economical car rental companies. Some of them may require more patience to wait for shuttles, desk service, car selection, and car return. And most of these will be a couple of miles away from an airport where you'll get on a shuttle, you'll go to a further or more remote location and pick up your vehicle. And it's going to be important to check your car insurance policy and your credit cards for any coverage that may be included. So that way you're not purchasing anything you don't need to purchase. And so we encourage you to do your research ahead of time. Most major credit cards that people have, a lot of times it has some coverage as well as our individual car insurance policy. And again, check ahead of time. Now, when you're doing international car rentals, it's going to be very different than domestic travel. You have to consider what is going to be your comfort level driving internationally. You might be on the opposite side of the road. The steering might be on the other side. And so you might be driving from what we know as the passenger side. A lot of international car rentals oftentimes have manual transmission instead of automatic, or automatic may cost a lot more. Depending on your location, you may have to get an international driver's license and or international driver coverage. Depending on where you're going internationally, parking may be difficult and expensive. And again, those are things to all consider when you're doing your travel. And so again, planning ahead, thinking about it, doing some research is always going to be the best thing to do before you're making your final plans. We also have a variety of options to travel by ground that include taxis or ride sharing. Taxis are still an option for ground transportation. And if you've used it before, you may know that it can be more convenient depending on where you're going. Some airports, for example, they'll have their rideshare pickup locations a little bit more remote. And so it might be a few more blocks that you're going to have to walk in order to get to that location, or you might have to navigate through very hot weather or rainy and windy weather a little further away. Taxis generally have adequate inventory, and a lot of times they're on the spot and right there, such as major airports and major hotels. One thing to keep in mind is most rideshare companies are going to be non-negotiable, whereas if you jump into a taxi, some of those drivers may be willing to negotiate the price. Ride sharing may offer a more personable experience with your driver. They may offer local tips and suggestions. Some taxi drivers, on the other hand, might not be willing to share that information, or some of them may have incentives to promote certain businesses or restaurants. Keep in mind too, when you're traveling, taxis may require cash payment, whereas ride sharing is usually cashless. Ride sharing sometimes also have promotions or discounts that can be used. And so all of that are things to consider how you want to get around, whether or not you need a rental car. Is it worth those parking fees in popular destinations? We have some time for a few questions right now. So I'll turn it over to our Tea and Coffee Tuesdays team to bring a few questions on.
Hi, JR.
Okay,
Yes, we have
Sarita.
quite a few. We have quite a few questions. A lot of people want to know about travel insurance tips, and if you have advice for that, what do you think about travel insurance, getting out travel insurance?
Very good. It's a great question. AARP actually has some articles about whether or not it's important to buy travel insurance. Most of the time, it's worth considering when you're doing overseas or international travel. However, again, it's important to do your research first. One of the things to check before considering purchasing travel insurance is going to be, what does your medical plan cover? And so your medical coverage may cover some countries, it may not. It's going to be the first thing that you'll want to do before you make that decision. The second thing about travel insurance is you can plan on it being approximately 10% of your travel costs. And so, for example, if it's a $1,000 package that you're going to do for your airfare, your hotel, and your transportation, that insurance should be about $100. If you purchase the travel insurance through the airline that you're traveling on, oftentimes it is not the most economical. If you do your research, there's often various travel insurance companies that are out there. Some of them offer plans for the whole year. It will depend on the frequency that you're going to travel. The other thing to consider is your method of payment. And so If you're using a credit card, a lot of those major ones have some coverage. And so you'll want to check to see what is covered or not. As we get older, it's more likely that we may have an incident during a trip. Most of the time, you don't know when it's going to happen. Just like car insurance and other types of insurance that we have, most people feel comfortable having that in case you do need it. And most people who have traveled and had a medical emergency that did not have it will tell you they wish they had purchased it. And so it's all dependent on, what coverage do you already have and what are you lacking. And so it's going to be important to check that out. Do your research to find out what it is or isn't covered. Most of the time, we hear from people that will say, I traveled internationally, I didn't have insurance, something medically happened, I did not like the healthcare in certain countries. And so then some people will say they wish they had the insurance that included the medical evacuation. And so those are things to all consider and to look and do your research on.
Definitely. Thank you, JR. That's really, really helpful and important information. We have another person asking if it's true that Tuesdays, I know you listed what days were the most economical to travel, but they wanted to know if Tuesday was the best day to book flights on. Could you speak
Great
briefly?
question. The best time to book domestic travel is going to be Tuesdays, Wednesdays, or Thursdays. Most business and leisurely travelers will book their trips Friday through Monday. And it kind of varies, but most airlines will also offer airfare specials from Tuesdays to Thursdays because it's less common. And so those are kind of the rule of thumb to follow for domestic travel.
JR, I think they were asking if that's the best day to book the flight. So do you go online to buy the flights on Tuesday?
Correct. Yeah, Tuesday to Thursday.
Okay. What, and I do recall that you spoke to this, but just to reiterate again, in economy, what is meant by one personal item?
Great question. Personal item are items that fit underneath the seat in front of you, such as a purse, a backpack, or a briefcase. Larger items such as roller bags and large duffels, those are considered carry-on items that will only fit in the overhead bin.
Thank you. Another attendee wanted to know if there were sites to find travel partners to avoid the single cruise supplements. And I know someone responded to this, but do you have any other sites, any ideas? I suppose you could always Google it.
Absolutely. There's a whole variety, and it depends on your interests, your budget, what exactly you're looking for. There's almost something for everybody out there. And the other thing to consider too, again, is when you do your comparison shopping, look at multiple sites and multiple vendors. A lot of them have their own specialties, and you can see, the variety of hotels. Some may be much more budget friendly, which is what you're looking for. Others may offer more luxurious. It all depends on what exactly you're looking for and what your budget's going to be.
Okay, and speaking of car rentals, is there an age limit on car rentals? I'm assuming we're talking about the upper cutoff limit.
Not that I am aware of. Most places, as long as you have a valid driver's license and proof of insurance, you should be fine. Some rental car companies do require that renter's age is a minimum of 25. Some companies have an extra fee if you're under 25. And so it varies by company, but I am not aware of any upper limits.
Okay. Let's take one more question and then you can carry on.
Okay.
Do you have any thoughts on train travel? Any advice on how to get the best fares? Because there is a ARP discount or AAA discount, but anywhere else that people can find discounts on train travel from East Coast to West Coast and vice versa?
Yes, it depends on the carrier that you use. As an example, I know Amtrak offers fares, especially for older adults. And so that's something to look into. For train travel, most of the time, you're not going to find big discounts or a lot of savings. Most of the time, it may be more in the 5 to 10% range. And so usually there's not a great savings there. But again, the earlier you book and the earlier you plan, that's the rule of thumb in order to save money.
Thank you. All right, let's carry on.
Thank you for all your questions, and go ahead and keep them coming. We'll have a time at the end for some more. So a big question that we are often asked is, should I use a travel agent or not? And again, it all depends on your own situation. A travel agent can save you money, and they can definitely save you time. And so if you don't want to do a lot of research and trying to figure out what certain travel language means, a travel agent is going to definitely help you. Travel agents have the ability to bundle by using different vendors, which they have access to, and a lot of times they can save you money. Most of the time, travel agents will not save you money on airfare. However, using a travel agent is somebody that can help you in case you have a disruption or something happens with a cancellation. Most of the time, travel agents can jump right in. They know the policies of airlines, they know what partners airlines have, and usually they can handle that for you instead of you doing it yourself. Most travel agents have expertise for specific locations or experiences. And so it all depends on where you're going to go. If you're going to use a travel agent, use one that is known for that destination. There's travel agents out there that specialize in cruises. They'll be able to tell you which ones are the best ones based on your interests and budget. If you don't want to do a lot of research, travel agents have probably done it already. In fact, a lot of them have probably been to certain destinations that you're interested in. They're also very knowledgeable about policies, travel waivers, and anything else that can happen. A lot of times what we've learned is we'll do a quick research and we'll see we can get X price. And then the travel agent may come back and say they have a different price. And then it ends up being, you'll be frustrated. And again, the travel agent is there to help save time and to coordinate it all for you. So you might be able to get lower prices yourself, but remember, it depends on your time, what you're looking for. And so those are things to consider. When it's a complicated trip or international, most of the time a travel agent is going to be your best choice to do it. If it's a domestic and easy trip, you probably can do it yourself if you're comfortable doing that. And the other thing too is when we hear about computer failures or big weather issues, we oftentimes will hear how people waited in line at the airport for 5 hours, or they waited on phone hold for 5 hours. A lot of times, if you have a travel agent, they have a different phone number to use, and sometimes it'll be more expedited. And so those are things to keep in mind. Another option for traveling is there's a variety of travel clubs that are out there. And the great thing about a travel club is they often will get group rates, which will save money. You'll be able to travel with people that are like-minded or similar age or similar interests. These travel clubs have a lot of details that are arranged for you. You might have travel clubs that relate to the destination, your lifestyle. It might be best for couples or singles or families. There's a variety of travel clubs that are out there. The other great thing too about some travel clubs is some of them will provide free experiences. And a lot of times what that may entail is you'll meet with some locals during your trip. You might go to a visitor bureau for a presentation. And sometimes some of those clubs will even pay for your transportation from your home city to the destination. And so that provides those great opportunities to really see more at a local level with similar people. And it's oftentimes a great experience. I know here in Sacramento, we have some volunteers here that do travel a lot. And they have found that these travel clubs are really a very great experience, that a lot of them have formed lifelong relationships and they've planned future travels together as well. And so that's something to consider. If we don't have a lot of money, we're going to consider doing a staycation, which is basically staying at home or in a nearby town, where we're going to keep traveling costs to a very minimal. It also provides us the opportunity to become better familiar with our own areas. So when we have visitors, friends, or family visiting, we'll know the types of places that you'll want to take them or to go and see. You could also consider doing camping and visiting outdoor spaces, accessing walking trails, or doing self-guided tours. You could visit local parks or zoo, museums, wineries, art galleries, historical sites. There are so many things that we can do in our local areas that may be free or have very minimal costs. We can also look at bed and breakfast. And I know for me, based in Sacramento, I can easily drive to the Bay Area, which is about 90 minutes to 2 hours away for a day trip if I want to get away. And so those are things that you can do as well, even if you don't have a large budget to travel. One of the things that a lot of people don't consider are loyalty clubs. And these are often known as frequent stay clubs, frequent flyer clubs. A lot of these will offer discount for their loyal club members. That may include car rentals, hotels, and airfare. Frequent customers also usually get free perks like upgrades, preferred locations, preferred check-in lines, free food and beverage, access to discounts. And so those are things to consider. Over time, you may accumulate enough points for free travel. And it's amazing because you may stay in a hotel room once or twice a year. And over a few years, you may have enough points for a free stay. A lot of these loyalty clubs may also provide preferred customer service by being a part of their program. One thing to be aware of is when you join these loyalty clubs, you will get more email, you may get more text messages, and you may get more phone calls. And so those are just kind of things to kind of keep in mind. And a lot of these loyalty clubs now, a lot of them, you are allowed to accumulate those points, and a lot of times they don't expire. There are still some programs out there where they do expire if there's no activity on your account after a year or two. But for the most part these days, you can accumulate it as long as you can. And so these are some great tips to consider. The other thing to think about when you're traveling is oftentimes with technology, we like to avoid people now. We like to use an app. We like to go straight to the hotel room to use your smartphone. But if you go to a check-in counter at a hotel, you might be able to negotiate that resort fee. You might be able to get a discount to the hotel restaurant. You might be able to get a free preferred room or a higher floor or a room with a view. And so if you go to the hotel check-in counter, you may have better opportunities to save money. Whereas if you go straight to your room, use your phone to get into your room, you may miss out on those opportunities. And so those are things to consider. If you want to save money, go to the hotel front desk. You might also be able to ask them for a free late checkout, maybe an hour or two later than the posted time. And so those are things to consider. Finally, before we move on and adjourn today, AARP offers a variety of membership discounts. And so if you're an AARP member, we have a variety of travel-related discounts. These can also be found at aarp.org. We also work through the AARP Travel Center, which is powered by Expedia, that provides you all of this information for discounts at different providers. Each provider has their own requirements and they offer different size discounts. But again, if you're doing your research, you can save a lot of money. There's hotels, airfare, transportation methods, parking at the airport. There's information on travel insurance. We even have a benefit to Rush My Passport, where you can save money when you have to expedite your passport because you forgot that it's going to expire. We also have discounts through Ticketmaster, so depending where you're going, and you may be able to buy 3 tickets and get 1 free, or you might get a percentage off. We also have a variety of nationwide restaurants that offer discounts for AARP membership. And a lot of people don't realize through ExxonMobil, they actually offer perks as well for AARP members. And so those are a variety of ways to save money through the AARP membership. And again, all of that can be found at aarp.org. Sarita, do we have any last questions?
Yes, actually. One person wants to know, do travel agents charge?
So most travel agents don't charge because they receive commission off the bundles or packaging. Some travel agents do have a minimal fee, but there are ones out there that don't charge because they do get incentives and commission through various providers.
Okay. Do you have any examples of travel clubs and how to find them in your area?
So most travel clubs, you could do a quick search online, but a lot of them are connected through social media. And so you could look at Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and other ones to find a travel club. The other thing you can do as well is to connect with a local travel agent who may also be familiar of travel clubs in your area.
Okay. And I know we always do this before we travel. We always familiarize ourselves with local etiquette, but do you have any advice on familiarization on local etiquettes, especially if you're going to a foreign country like Asia?
Great question. One of the things you can do is I would recommend actually going onto YouTube. On YouTube, there's a lot of scenarios and videos related to travel etiquette. If you're using a travel agent, they can also provide you that information as well. And it's important to know before you go, because in some countries, you don't want to tip somebody because it's considered offensive, or you may not want to try to shake somebody's hand. And so you definitely want to do your research, especially when you travel abroad.
Very good points. Thank you, JR. And the last question, somebody wants to know any tips on where to start researching a trip when you're not sure about where to go? Do you have any suggestions? Like they want to go to Africa or to Asia. How do they decide which one to go to?
You know, the best thing I would recommend is to talk to your own network of friends and family to see if anybody in your network has gone to the locations you're interested in. The other thing that I like to do, especially since the pandemic, is I utilize YouTube a lot to get an idea of what is out there at my ideal destination. There's also some travel agents that are, or not travel agents, airline crew that also do videos, life of a travel agent, that allows you to get a preview of different destinations around the world. And those are a great way to see what's out there.
Thank you, JR. Those are great, great ideas and tips. Okay, in the interest of time, Joyce, back to you.
Wow, thank you so much, JR. That was some powerful information that you shared, and I'm sure, I'm almost positive that somebody learned something from it. So thank you again. But before we close out, we'd like to take a quick pause about what you've learned, audience. So please put in the chat, what did you learn today about saving money on a travel? What did you learn about saving money on traveling today? Sarita, as they're putting those answers in, just share us what they have.
Well, a lot of people are thanking you for all this wonderful information. They've learned about what the best days to travel are, that there are AARP discounts. A travel agent really helps. Go to the hotel front desk, somebody says. All right, and they have learned when to book a flight. Yeah, everyone says, thank you very much. This was wonderful information. All right, I think we can close out. But I can't keep up with these messages. There's so many comments coming in. People are
that's
so
why I was
excited.
asking you to start it as it's going on. I know I was excited by listening to it. So thank you again, JR. Now, if you're interested in rewatching this program, which I'm sure you probably are, if you know if somebody else wants to watch this program or any other previous programs, you can visit our Tea and Coffee Tuesdays website. The link has been placed into the chat. Now, for our upcoming events, the next Tea and Coffee Tuesday monthly meeting will be Tuesday, July the 9th at 9 a.m. As we discussed earlier, tips on saving money on your utility bill. That's going to be a good one. And for our next event after that, our next Piggy Bank Essential series will start on Thursday, September the 26th, 2024 at 9 a.m. Again, a big thank you to our guest, JR. Excellent information. Our moderator, Sarita. Thank you so much for Sarita. Our tech specialists, Vince and Connie and Jacqueline. Our AARP staff, and especially you, our Zooming audience. Again, I'm Joyce Howard, your AA volunteer host, and thank you again for joining